Welcome to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. What's your train wreck? Everyone has one. The question is, are you just visiting or are you going to live there? I'm Mary Fran Bontempo. Join me and let's learn how to come through those train wrecks, not broken, but brilliant. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Today I have someone with me that I am so eager to talk to, and this is Alyssa Dver. Alyssa is a founder and head of both the American Confidence Institute and ERG Leadership Alliance. She is a renowned confidence and employee group expert who blends brain science, data, and candid insights to spark lasting personal and cultural change. She's a two-time TEDx speaker. Go girl. Award-winning author of 8 books, Real Confidence podcaster, and L'Oreal's IT Cosmetics Confidence Educator, IT Cosmetics Confidence Educator. MSN identified her as 2026 top 10 speaker to follow. Chief Navigators put her as a pioneering woman leader, and the Stevies awarded her twice for thought leadership and achievement in diversity and inclusion. Whew. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, right back at you, Mary Fran. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm just going to be totally candid here and say, even saying the word confidence puts a knot in my stomach. Just like
Oh,
even saying that word, because it's something we all aspire to. It's something that many of us fake. Not that I'm talking about me here, but but I think it's a very loaded word. Do you find that in your work, the way people react to it, how you approach it, the whole idea of confidence and what it is and how we need it and use it?
oh, I don't know if I would describe it as loaded. I think it is more interpretive, right?
There you
Because
go.
some people would say, arrogance and overconfidence. They're like, yeah, that's just not cool, right? And then there's people, and unfortunately, a lot of women who are like, I could never be confident. One of my favorite pastimes, not that I get to do it very much these days, is going to places like Chico's, right? The retail store,
Hmm.
and watch and listen to the women. Inevitably, they're shopping with a friend or two or three. And you will hear, I could never wear that, right? And I'm the one who goes up and I'm like, put it on. Let's see, right? But we are somewhat afraid, and I say we, the women folk for the most part, but this is not alienated to men. In fact, one of the bad assumptions we made at the Institute, American Confidence Institute, is when we looked at our analytics, we were shocked. There's more men on our site than women. And then
Oh,
people were like, well, they're looking for their daughters, their wives, their sisters. I'm like, I don't think so. And
yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's one of those, you're right. It's a word that a lot of people are like, how do we get it? What do we do about it? Do we have the right amount of it? So it is, I'll give you loaded.
Yeah, well, I think because it can inspire fear, and that's kind of why I went in that direction because people want confidence. They're afraid they don't have it. They don't know how to get it. And people who are, in some people's minds, overly confident inspire that, like that little kind of, I don't know what to do with this person. Um, so I kind of there's so many things I want to touch on here. First of all, you talk about this in a neurological way. Take me back to the beginning of where all this started. And I think, and excuse me if I'm making an assumption, that some of it might have had to do with your son's 2008 diagnosis with a neurological issue.
That's right. That's right. I would say that that was the kind of the catalyst, but I had been brewing this fascination with motivation well before. I mean, I can remember reading motivational books when I was in like middle school, right? Like just really fascinated, like what makes people want to do something. And I followed the path actually and ended up in marketing, which makes sense, right? Marketing is like, how do you motivate people to buy stuff, right? Needless to say, it was always kind of, I was just curious and I was reading anything and everything that had to do with motivation and how do people make decisions and all that. So I had already been kind of in that lane, I would say. And then, yes, 2008, I got that dreadful call from his teachers at school saying there's something wrong with Zach's arms. And we hadn't really seen it at home. And I say really, we didn't see it at home at all. But when he was in school at that age, learning to write and doing other things, what was very visible is his forearms were out of control and he would shake tremors, almost like a Parkinsonian kind of tremor.
Oh my goodness.
At an 8-year-old, you're like, what? So 2 years, lots of doctors around the world. I live in the Boston area. We were up and down the East Coast, New York, Philadelphia, trying to figure out what was going on. And finally, he was diagnosed with something called dystonia. And dystonia is not part of the Middle East. It is actually a category of neurological, it's a way of categorizing neurological disorders because it literally means that there is a disconnect between some of the neurons. So when Zach's brain would say, go take the pen and write, the muscles in his arms were not, or the nerves in his arms were not getting that message clearly. And so the like almost like that game of telephone where it gets so distorted that at the end it's a different message. So there was that tremor of we don't know what to do. Um, what really kind of catapulted me, and I use the word catalyze, is that when I would talk to these doctors, and Mary Fran, we've all had this experience. You're talking to a doctor, they're sitting at their desk, they've got their big old credentials behind them, and I'm talking to Harvard educated, Stanford educated doctors, and they look at me with some kind of comment or diagnosis or whatever, and I could tell they just didn't have the confidence in what they were saying. So it was a
Hmm.
combination of studying brain science, which at the time was just coming to the surface. People didn't even know what it was yet. And at the same time, realizing that even the experts don't have confidence. So, maternal motivation, yeah, full throttle and dug in deep. And those same Harvard doctors called me. In fact, some of them endorsed my books because they realized that the brain science field wasn't something that they learned when they were in medical school, and it's cross-disciplinary and all this that they just didn't have the confidence or the ability to kind of go through. And yeah, so here we are today because it kind of cracked a code for a lot of people that confidence, you said before, causes fear, actually is the resolution of fear. And when you understand a little bit about the way the brain processes fear and how you can actually control it, that's how you get confident.
First of all, that's brilliant. Confidence is the resolution of fear. And I think, and you do talk about this a lot, I think people think they need to already have it, but you've determined that it is, in fact, a skill that you can build upon. And I'm
Absolutely.
assuming that that also connects with the neurological part of the brain, too. And I think it's really important to talk about these things in scientific ways because so much of what we are learning is about mindset. And that can sound like this, woo-woo kind of thing that is just kind of out there in the ether somewhere. But when you recognize that it is grounded in actual science and brain science, it seems that it's more achievable. So it's not just something you kind of have to grab at and try to catch while it's floating by you. So how how did it come about that you linked confidence with brain science and how do we build this as a skill?
Well, I have to tell a little bit of the resolution of what happened with my son because when we finally found somebody who understood this beautiful concept of neuroplasticity, and again, you're
Mm.
talking like 2010, like this was vocabulary nobody was using. And he was up in Toronto, and I watched Zach take control of his physical body with that mindset change. Zach just turned 27 this past Sunday on Mother's Day.
Oh,
And
happy birthday, Zach.
yeah, and two things that are bragworthy. One is he has a master's degree in school counseling and works in an underserved elementary school, helping kids because, in his words, Ma, I know what it's like to be different. And on the weekends, he's a tennis pro.
Oh my God.
So when you see that kind of
Didn't see
result,
that coming.
didn't see that coming. And when you certainly see that ability and that mind over body, and you start to see not only all these clients that, in the last decade I've worked with to help them not so much change their mindset, but literally just small shifts and the confidence it brings to them, and then the things that they achieve, whether it's a job promotion and or better relationships or whatever it is that's their goal, right? I- you have to believe. It's not one of whether it's scientific or not. I think the science just gets over some of the pessimists who say it is hooey. It's not hooey. It's proven. And you can talk to about 30,000 people that I can give you a database of that will tell you it changed their life.
So the idea that this is something that we can build upon, how do you even begin to start? I mean, particularly, let me back up a little bit. I think people have confidence and they don't even know it because everyone has a skill set. Everyone has something that they're good at. I think the challenge with a lot of people, and I talk about this when I talk about people's brilliance, is that when things come easily to us, we don't see them as skills. We just think, oh, it's something I know how to do. But if we can look at that objectively and say, yeah, but not everybody else knows how to do it, and I do it well, that might be that kernel of confidence that they could at least start to build on. So how do we recognize that we already have confidence? We just have to see it and then we have to learn to build on it. What's the process there? And in fact, is that a good interpretation of it?
Um, Not really, to be honest. So thank you for being so humble to say that, because I'm going to give you again some mind shifts about what confidence is and what it's not. So confidence is the result of a decision.
Okay.
And whether you look at it from a laboratory perspective, if you're a scientist and you say, and are we confident this is an accurate result? If you look at it from a human, relationship perspective, it is a decision of whether something is true or not. So we were talking about my crazy hair today, right? Like I get up in the morning and I look outside and I'm like, okay, what's the weather going to be? Because that tells me what I should or shouldn't do with my hair. Today, it really faked me out because I was like, I think it's going to rain. So, needless to say, when you make those decisions, whether it's how much gel to put in your hair, or if I should open my mouth in a meeting, or if I should give this new sport a try, whatever it is you're deciding about, your brain takes all kinds of data points, historical, environmental, whatever
Hmm.
is available at that time, and it makes a decision if you're confident or not. That's what confidence is. And when you say, yes, I can do it, or no, I can't do it, you're confident about that decision. So it's a very different way of looking at it.
It is. Hmm.
Where fear comes into this equation is that when you are nervous, anxious, fearful, where you think you might look stupid, do something that's harmful to yourself or others, any kind of trigger of fear that you go, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this, you get to decide in that moment, I can deal with this or I can't. If you say to yourself, you can't, all that goes into a different part of your brain where you get into almost like a brainless or a thoughtless space. It's your brainstem, and that is the reactive fight or flight, autonomic, reactive things that we do. Versus if I say, I never did this, but I'm willing to give it a try. You made a confident decision to try. That's up here in your prefrontal where you're saying, what's the worst that could happen? Let me give it a try. If I look stupid, I look stupid. So what, right? You're being rational. You're calculating something that is tolerable, and subsequently we behave in a confident way.
Hmm.
Does
Okay, so I'm scribbling away frantically here because this is really starting to make sense in the with the perspective of, as you said, once you make that decision, and these things are happening very quickly for the most part. I think
Oh,
people are like,
microsecond. And the problem is most of the time we're not even aware we're doing it, right?
yes, that's kind of where I was going with this. So if because immediately if you go, I don't know, I would venture to guess that the survival instinct kicks in, which
Yep.
is a very different thought process than the as you said, the prefrontal thing where you're starting to figure things out and all that. Survival to me means duck and cover. Like most of the time, that's what we're thinking, duck and cover. So, is part of this slowing down that decision-making process and trying to look at this and say, as you said, what's the worst that can happen and take that step forward?
It is part of it. And but think of it this way, when you said it's a skill, this is the essence of the skill is recognizing that moment that you're wigging out, that you're freaking out, right? And say to yourself, okay, stop. Right? We talk about people all over the place hijacking the amygdala. It's not a hijack. What it is recognizing at those moments that your amygdala is telling you this is a little scary. There's something that could hurt me physically or could hurt me emotionally, and that includes your ego, right? And recognizing that fear and going, okay, fear, I see you. Should I really be worried? Is this really dangerous?
Hmm.
Or is this something that I should think through before I react? Now, you're not going to do that for every decision, like my hair or my wardrobe for the day, but you're going to do that. You learn to do that skill in those moments where you get that, as my friend would say, my Toronto friend would say, that itchy feeling, that little bit uncomfortable, like not really sure if I'm comfortable in my skin feeling or whatever it is for you. It could be even some people sweat, some people get a little tick, some people get whatever it is that you recognize that fear is getting in the way of you going, I need to make a confident decision. And then again, it's not a decision that necessarily says, yes, I'm going to do it. It's a decision, yes, I'm going to do it because I feel I can, or no, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to, and I clearly am okay with that.
Hmm. I really like that idea that the decision could be yes or no. It's a matter of having that grounding part in you where you go, okay, I'm comfortable with this. This is the right decision for me at this moment. And it doesn't always have to be. And I think people, when they think about confidence, they think about it, they put it in this mindset or this headspace of always going out and pushing forward and doing things, and as opposed to a confidence can also be a this is not a right decision for me. This is not something that I need to do. So at its most basic, it's about having that connection with your brain as well as your emotions, and not letting one or the other maybe take precedence, but finding that balance between them.
Yeah, and the real boundaries, the rule book is your values, right?
Oh, I love this part. I talk about values all the time. Go, girl. Let
Yeah.
me hear what you have to say.
Well, I like to describe them as like those bumpers we put in the lanes for the kids, right? It's the thing that says, this is really important to me. And I'm going to give you an example. How many people on earth still think giving a presentation is scarier than poking your eyes out, right? So I said, people come to me, I have to give a presentation. I can't do it. I'm so scared. I'm like, then don't do it. Just say no. What's the problem? You're off the hook. It's fine. Oh, I have to do it. Why do you have to do it? And then you get to the real problem, which is my boss said I need to do this for a promotion, or I really need to escalate my expertise, my authority, whatever it is, right? You get to the heart of it. Then you can solve for that fear. The fear isn't the presentation. There's something underneath there that's really causing it. And the values of that person, what they really want, what that's really important to them, when you identify those things, then you can make a good decision. Because honestly, if it's just they asked me to do a presentation because nobody else was available, then just say no. Then say, I appreciate you asking me. It's just not something that I would like to do. Be done with it. But if it's something that you really feel you need to do for whatever reason, then step into that and say, this is important to me. Now let's figure out how I can address those fears and get on with what I need to do.
So again, it comes back to a balance between whatever the emotional feeling is and putting that in the right space for what's actually going on, which is not necessarily the terror of a presentation, which obviously a lot of people have, but the why. So the why question of, well, why should I do this or why shouldn't I do this needs to be answered then in alignment with what you really want. So it's all about digging deeper, I think, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And you can apply that same set of rules, if you will, to any decision, right? How important is it I'll go back to my loopy hair today. How important is it that I spend an extra 5 minutes or figure this, like you get to a point where you're like, you know what, Mary Friend's gonna like me no matter what I say. Well, how I look, it's what I say, right? So you get to that point. Now, here's the thing that we were talking about before you turned on the record button. The older we get, the more we realize 99% of what freaked us out when we were young was so trivial. And so the good news is we get to a point in our life and we've studied it for years and years and years, and it always comes back to age 60,
I was
particularly.
just going to bring this up because this was one of the things that when I was researching your stuff, I thought, oh my God, she's so right. That age 60 is that age. What did you say? You say for the average person to reach their confident best.
Yeah. And it's not
Wow.
my thing. This is the data. We've got hordes of data on this, is that we finally get enough knowledge, experience, wisdom, hard knocks, all that we accumulate, and we go, I don't care what my hair looks like today. It's okay. Right? Now, that's sad to me. 60
It
years,
is. Oh my
that's a lot
God.
of time to wait. And all these magazines and things that are like, 50s when life starts, 60s when everything. I'm like, yeah, no, no poop, Sherlock. So I would encourage people that if you want to start a lot sooner or later, that's your prerogative, okay? It's that recognition of the fear that's causing you to feel uncomfortable. And when you grab that fear and you say, let me think about this for a second. Yeah. Now, not every decision, again, we make over 30,000 a day. You can't do it for every decision, but the ones that are really making you nervous, there's a reason because it's challenging your values. I say, don't violate your own values and you'll be confident.
So can we boil this down? I hate to say boil this down because I don't mean to minimize it, but is there like a few steps process here that we can put in our minds that we can sort of work through when we're feeling that thing in the pit of your stomach that goes, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Is there a way that we can logically, and I want to use that term specifically because I know the emotion can be a big part in making us say no. Is there a short process that you can sort of give us that when we really feel we need to make a confident decision, one way or the other, that we can go through to do
Absolutely.
that?
So yeah, we developed a coaching methodology many, many years ago with some brilliant expert coaches and of course all the brain scientists as well. It's really simple and it really works. And you can use it on yourself, you can use it on anyone else. So just beware. I have a feeling some of your listeners may be trying this at home. But needless to say, it's really powerful. So here's how it goes. You know what? Maybe if you don't mind, we'll do a really quick example together
Sure.
if you're game with me. So pick
Absolutely.
something that maybe makes you a little nervous to do, whatever it is.
Believe it or not, it's still giving presentations and speaking in front of people and
Okay.
getting it right. Maybe that's the better way to look at
Getting
it.
it
Making
right.
sure I
Okay.
get it right.
Okay. So step one is I obviously identifying what it is specifically. Don't just say, I get nervous talking to people, like what kind of people. And so any kind of presentation or a specific audience, or is it anything like that?
I think it's large groups where everyone is kind of your captive audience and they're there literally to hear what you have to say. So
Okay.
making sure I get it right, making sure I deliver the goods.
Okay. So you said you worried about getting it right. What does that really mean? Can you tell me what worries you in that sentence? Like, what is it?
So it's delivering valuable information in a way that is understandable and can be utilized by the audience. So I guess in some ways it's about having a valuable exchange in the sense of I'm there for the purpose of teaching something. So I want to make sure that the content that I'm teaching and the delivery reaches the people out there. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
It makes sense. I guess I wonder, why do you doubt that you can't do that? Or what is really the worry that you won't be able to do that?
I think the worry for me, and this may be something different, I don't know, but I think the worry for me is, and it all reflects back on myself, did I say enough? Did I say the right things? Did I get the points across in a way that they're understandable? I mean, as somebody who is a writer and focuses a lot within what's going on in my own brain, you always wonder, okay, is what's going on up here going to make sense to anybody else? I know it makes sense to me, but am I going to be able to deliver that in a way that makes sense to and reaches other people without them checking their phones in the middle of what I'm saying?
So, are you fearful that they're going to think that you're not smart? Do you think that they're not going to like you? Like, what is it that you really like when you say they're on their phones? That what is that about? That what are you worried about?
I don't know that I've ever gone this deep into looking at it. I guess worried about delivering a value, meeting expectations. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Meeting
Okay.
the audience expectations, those people who've brought me in. Am I delivering what you need?
So, a little fear that you may fail to do that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
So we're doing this like live, but at the same time, now we know what the fear is. Okay, so that's step two. What is the fear? The core of the fear is failing to deliver the goods, fail, as you said originally, but failure to really make them educated. And at the core of that, think Mary Fran's awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, I never thought of it that way, but sure.
Yeah. So
Who
it's in the
doesn't want to
core.
have that? Who doesn't want to
Every
have that
fear
revealed?
is this fear of not belonging, a fear of not of
Hmm.
being rejected. But we're going to stay with this fear of failure. You went in to do a job, and that is to deliver this value to them to really help them understand resilience, and you didn't, and you don't do that. So that's a fear of failure. All right. So we're going to take that fear of failure and we're going to look it in the eyeballs, and we're going to say, what can we do to mitigate that? Like, what would be a ways that you could, and any idea is a good idea. I want you to give me at least three. Like, what are the things you could do? Your next presentation's coming up, and you're like, ah, I don't want to fail. What could you do? Random ideas.
Hmm. Well, I think, I mean, maybe feedback is one thing that you get from other people.
What about feedback? You would get feedback, or you would review it? What would you
I
do?
I I think you get it and then you review it, and
Okay,
because obviously you're speaking to people who process information in all different ways.
sure.
So, and maybe there's a little bit of that in there. Maybe making sure that, you're presenting the information in different ways, visually, verbally, those kinds of things. So maybe it's being certain that you're offering people an opportunity to absorb it in their own way, in their own
Okay.
space.
Those are
Um,
two great ideas. Give me one more.
Um, uh, well, I think maybe recording and watching myself might
Oh,
be helpful too.
yeah. All right. Now we could go on and on and on with more ideas, but three is a really good number to just play with right now. You said get feedback and use it. Use different visual methods. Make sure you're accommodating all different kinds of learning styles.
Hmm.
And three, you could record and watch yourself ahead of time. So I would just want you to pick the one of those ideas, just one that you're like, I'm going to commit to do that next time I have a presentation.
I think it would probably be the watching myself deliver.
Okay. So that is a great thing to start. And you might do that and say, I want to do something else too. I want to do number two and number one. That's fine. But I want you to commit to doing at least one of those things. And you said you would record and watch yourself. We're the hardest critics, right? Our own critics.
Yes,
So,
that's that, and that would be extraordinarily painful. That would be really hard for me to do.
now, as human beings, we need a little accountability. This is just part of the way that we are wired. And I'm wondering, is there somebody or something, it could be a tool, it could be a process, it could be anybody that you could say, look, in my next presentation, this is what I'm going to do, and I want you to help me make sure I do it. Is there somebody or is there a,
I think I have a number of people who are even actually within that space.
okay,
Obviously, you tend to talk to people who do similar things. And I think I could quite possibly say, what do you think about this? Is there a place where I feel like I'm not hitting the mark, or a message is unclear? Because again, when you're delivering something and it comes out of your own head, it's clear to you,
Yeah,
obviously.
sure.
So it's a matter of making sure it goes that way for other people. So yeah, I think I have people that I could say, is
Yeah.
everything landing?
Okay, so maybe that they would be the ones who watch the recording, give you feedback. That's
That would
maybe
be better.
that's your fourth. It sounds that you just came up with that. You just didn't say it in the original three. So you have a game plan, and I would like you to pick one person that you really are going to commit. You don't have to say their name here, but that you're going to really lean into next time you have a presentation, because I'm not your coach in real life. Otherwise, I would offer myself, happy to do that for you as a new friend. But we just did the resolution, and I'm asking you, do you feel a little different now that we've gone through this, thinking about your next presentation?
Actually, yes, because again, and to go back to bring this whole conversation full circle, um, the idea of having a process or a plan or something that you can really follow steps through
Yep.
to build that again, that confidence skill when it just sounds like one of these words that you're supposed to know how to manage. That's really important. And I think that's important for everyone to have a process in order
Right.
to build to build that confidence as a skill. It's not just this thing that floats around in the ether. It's something that you can actually work at as a plan. So that's
Well,
very helpful.
it's a process. And again, we use it in our coaching methodology and all, but we did something very simple. And I'm just going to reiterate that process. We identified what the problem was, but more importantly, we identified what the real fear was. And when you do that, you externalize that. It's like you give it a name, you can look it in the face and you go, okay. And you made the decision to conquer the fear. And that is the confident moment. You said, yep, we're going to come up with ways and we're going to kick that fear. And it took us, and we are going to move through some kind of game plan. And if that plan doesn't work, we're going to try option number two. So in a very, oh wait, 5 minutes, I was timing 5 minutes, you took agency of that fear. Like I didn't tell you you had to solve for it. You did. And you solved for it in a way that you felt comfortable that you could do. So you took agency over the fear, you conquered the fear in that moment, and you said, I'm going to give this a try, and I feel like this can actually be a good first step. That's the process, and the skill is identifying what the real fear is and
Mm.
kick.
And I think that that's huge because to your earlier point when you were saying, somebody has to give a presentation and they're scared, they whatever. There is a reason for that. It's I mean, obviously fear of public speaking is so common. But here's what I guess I want to get at. How much of our confidence building do we have to disassociate from other people's judgment?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
It
Um,
is a loaded question. But to your earlier point about conquering a fear,
yes.
I think that's a very basic fear that most of us have.
Well, that
So,
is, like I said, the root of all of it is the need to
right.
belong. That's what it is do people think I'm weird, strange, off?
First of all, if you are, and I am, own it because it's not going away. Like, just
Right.
own it.
Well, again, that's a 60-year-old,
Right,
attitude.
exactly.
And when I was 20, I would have been like, yeah, sure, Mary Fran.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, if you are really tuned into your values and
Hmm.
you make a decision that this is really important to me, no matter what other people think, that gives you that data point to say, I am going to do X, whatever X is. I'm going to give the presentation or not. And that is not easy in a young brain. Now, young brains are very emotional. We don't get that full prefrontal advantage until after 26, and that's when all the life experience really starts to add up. But in reality, I've done the same kind of process even with very young people. And if you give them the scaffolding, you give them those bumpers to really question, and we did a very short version. Typically, these are 15-minute coaching interactions. If you give them the agency to really think about what's best for them
Hmm.
and and have them think about what could be the implications. Somebody could think you're weird. So what? This is important to you. So don't worry about what they think. Sometimes it will land well. And sometimes, again, a young person's brain isn't ready to rationalize that. I think our society is giving us more leeway to do that. And of course, with my employee resource group, ERG experience, I'm trying to really push the world to be like, differences are beautiful. And we're not there yet. So I think it depends on the maturity, it depends on the person, it depends on the situation, and of course, the consequence.
But there is a measure of, again, maybe since we're talking about building skills, maybe unhooking other people's emotional reactions to what you feel is best for you.
Yeah, and I think if you really think about the most confident people in the world that we all know, we've seen them, we've observed them, we just don't always bank it in our brain. They're not apologetic. They're not saying, I'm sorry, that you don't like me. They're basically saying, this is what I'm going to do and this is why I want to do it for myself in their heads anyway. And subsequently, they're not trying to hurt or offend anyone. That's not part of confidence, but they're not worried about what other people think because they recognize that this is the confident decision that they're making consciously.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, there's two places now that I want to go just based on what you said. Well, actually, there's a whole bunch of places that I want to
I
go.
think we need to do part two because we've been
I think
talking a
we
long
do
time and I
too.
feel like it just flew by.
I think we do too, but we're going to keep going. And if I have to divide this into two parts, this will be the part where we do part two of our interview with Alyssa Dver. So, you're the couple of things that I have written down here. First of all, when you talk about people who aren't apologetic, you're saying one of the things that you say is it bad to be overly confident or arrogant? And I think that's one of the things that people fear about appearing too confident.
Hmm.
And is arrogance, first of all, is that an appropriate word? And second of all, is it completely bad to be too arrogant?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And too arrogant. I don't think you can be too arrogant. You're either
Too
arrogant or
arrogant.
not. I always
Yeah.
say confidence is binary, but it's not absolute. And so, binary being you either are confident or you're not. There's no such thing as sort of confident. Like you're not sort of pregnant either. Uh, but it's not absolute because there's always going to be a chance of that you could be wrong, right? My hair sometimes fakes me out, right? Or no, I wasn't as good as I was hoping to be, right? Like there is a standard deviation of doubt. That's part of being confident. Now, with overconfidence and arrogance, those are actually the opposite of each other. So we'll take one at a time. Arrogance is that person knows in their head that they're not confident, they can't do something, they're not all that
Hmm.
in a basket of whatever. They know that, but they're trying to fake it and they're trying to make you believe it even though they don't.
Ha. There you
Okay.
go.
That's what arrogance is. We know it, we see it, and sometimes we say to ourselves, well, maybe I'm underestimated. Maybe they're really as good as they think they are. But they're in their heads, they know they're not that good. Overconfidence is the ignorance of believing that you're capable of doing something, whatever it is, and not having the goods. So,
Hmm.
people who think that they can do something, like, who's so overconfident, you can't just walk into the bar exam unprepared, right? Now, overconfidence is dangerous because it puts people in situations where they could be hurt emotionally and physically. Arrogance is just annoying. It's fake it till you make it. And you know what? The thing is that it does hurt other people because other people follow along and then somewhere along the line they realize you're full of poop.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the things we all need to do is when you see arrogance, call it in your head at least what it is. Oh, too bad for Joey. He's just arrogant. And whoever follows Joey, really too bad for them because he's arrogant.
So, truly confident people who have made that connection to their values and to what works for them in the world and what doesn't, that's not something that they're going to fall into because once you have that foundation, you know. And I think that's something that maybe we need to strive for. And that's where we talk about things being a bunch of hooey and out there and all that, but there is a measure of that gut feeling that, okay, I know. And I think that's something that you don't ignore either, that gut feeling of, yep, this is it. I can do this. This is something. So once you practice that skill set and that process, you ground yourself in genuine confidence
That's
so that
right.
those other
Right.
things they don't really happen.
Well, they happen in moments, but you're able to reel it back in. And for example, as a parent, I have actually two children. When you screw things up, most parents would just kind of be like, ooh, I hope they didn't notice. But you know what? Going back to your kids and be like, that was not cool what I did. That was not a finest moment of mine. And I really want to redo, or I want to apologize, or whatever it takes to remedy the situation. That takes confidence, is to admit you screwed up, you're wrong, you failed. And at the same time, it allows you to have that moment of, I want to my value system is I want my kids to be great parents. And if they follow me in what I just did, that was not cool. And so you really go back to that moment of, what is important to me?
Yeah.
And you don't lose face by apologizing genuinely. You actually gain face, right? And I think it's interesting too. We could go down that whole path too, but sorry, sorry, sorry is not a good thing. But genuinely being sorry when you screw up or you hurt somebody and being like, look, that was not what I, that's not what I should have done. That's not what I was hoping to do. And I apologize. How can I fix it? That's a confident statement.
And it's a confidence builder just in what you're saying to know. I think one of the other misconceptions about confidence is people think that they always have to be right. But there is a measure of confidence in saying, yeah, I like you just said, I was right about that. And I'm willing to own it as part of my whole who I am here persona kind of a thing. There's a measure of confidence in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about anyone you know that's confident, alive, dead, but anyone that you've known that's confident. And in a room where, this is like, I love this. Think of even Thanksgiving in your own house or something where you have all your relatives. The most confident person is the one who's saying, I don't know about that. Can you tell me more? As opposed to somebody being like, oh, yes, I knew that and I know a guy and, all that arrogant nonsense but it's that confident person that's like, I don't know the answer to that, Mary Fran. I'm going to have to go and look some more information up, or maybe do you know somebody who's an expert in that I can learn from? That's the confident statement. You said before that sometimes people, when they're in their brainstem, when they go into that fear base, right? They don't just get undercover, they can also get very aggressive. So in a
Mhm.
meeting, right, some people will defend their answers, their decisions to the death because they don't want to look like they're wrong. That's arrogance. Because again, in their head, they're not sure that it's the right answer. But they're gonna make, oh no, Mary Fran, I read a book and that's what it said, right? That's aggressive. So it's fight or flight, right? And
Right.
that's the
And it goes
fight
back to
part.
that primal part where you're not
Primal, right?
actually thinking about the value system. It's just
Absolutely.
I have
They're
to
defending their
defend.
ego. They're
Yes, I have
defending
to
their ego.
defend. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so two more things before we, and I'm saying it like we're just going to go through the two more things. So the ERG thing, and I think a lot of that was started as a way to encourage diversity and inclusion and all of these kinds of things. So that's been weaponized in recent conversation in terms of being, exclusionary. And I tend to think of it more in light of what you say. Everybody's different. Every single person, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with gender or race or any of those kinds of things. So how do we, within a business, how do you build confidence with teams when everybody is different and you're trying to encourage that as a natural benefit to the fact that, hey, we're all here and we've got all this stuff. How do we build on that?
Oh my gosh. This is like a whole 3 hour
I I
conversation, but
know, I know, and I'm
all
asking you
right,
to
in 1 minute,
boil it down
here's
for
what I'm
me.
going to say. First of all, when I started the ERG Leadership Alliance, it was because I saw that these groups were the heart of where people get belonging,
Mm,
not express diversity. Um, and I still believe that. And I say they don't express they do express diversity, but that's what makes it so awesome. And so we built not only the business case and the ROI numbers to show that when you have a sense of belonging, particularly in these groups, you get more productivity, you get more retention, you get more customer loyalty, you get 23% more profits. We
wow.
have those numbers for all those facts. And like, so why wouldn't you want people feeling a sense of belonging, right? It's like I say to people, I don't care if you're a CFO or a CEO or a chief happiness officer, whatever your title is, like, why wouldn't you want to do this? Because you get such incredible lift. Now, with that said, it's about belonging, right? And if people want to belong to the Linen Arts group, which there's ones out there, if they want to belong to religious groups, they want to belong to community nonprofit centered ERGs. There's all kinds of ERGs all over. Whatever it is that you feel, again, your values align with, that's going to give you that sense of belonging and the ability to really be different because people there like you because you belong. So that's how we mitigate some of the things. Now, setting them up and running them, that's a whole different book and a whole different day.
Right, right. Oh no, absolutely. But I think to bring this back to the whole idea of confidence, and you mentioned this idea of belonging, and maybe at its most basic, that is something that is tied to confidence. We want to belong, so we feel more confident when we do. And
Yes.
that's also when a lot of the good things that we maybe had some self-doubt about or whatever can start to rise to the surface. When you can share information with people who value the same things that you do. And again, that's another thing that we're going back to here. You foster not only that sense of belonging, but then a sense of confidence as well.
Well, you did it before in our coaching scenario, right? You said, I have all these friends that who are really kind of in the same boat doing what I do, and they understand and they value what the importance is. And those are aligned values with you. And you were like, I'm going to go to them and get their feedback. So you did that. You have that sense of belonging in that crowd. Otherwise, you wouldn't go back to them and trust their feedback, right?
Right, right.
So
So
we
it's
all
it
have our ERGs. We just don't realize that they are all, whether it's
I
your,
love that. We all have our ERGs. All
we
right, so
do.
this is the last thing that we're going to I keep saying this is the last thing because I could talk to you for hours. But I wrote down I literally wrote down 5 words, and in doing I'm guessing this came from your website. I don't even know, but I'm going to give you these 5 words, and I'm going to guess this can be kind of our wind up point here. Clarify, calibrate, control, communicate, coach. You're somewhere, this is from you somehow or another, I don't know where. But
Yep.
take these words, clarify, calibrate, control, communicate, and coach. How do they fit into this confidence model? I think the clarifying is what we were just basically talking about, the
Yeah,
fear and
well,
the values and all that.
absolutely. So we applied those things directly to the coaching model, right? And the idea is when you're really clear about where your values are and you really do calibrate what that decision is against those values, which again, we did in the coaching, then you can really say, this is what I'm going to do. And if you have accountability, that's really the coaching. Now you can coach yourself. Like I tell people, and we have an e-class on it. You can do that the whole process for yourself, but you need some accountability. And if you have people that can help you keep accountable, it could be a partner or a friend or kids are great. You say to your kids, you know, Mom wants to do this by the end of the week. At the end of the week, can you make sure I did it? They are loving that. They
Oh,
love
I'll bet you that
right?
that
So
really
you
lands.
can find little coaches everywhere, but it's accountability. So that's what it's about. And you can take that kind of concept and put it into the coaching model for yourself, but it's also kind of that sense of getting back to finding, some people need a little bit more work than just being coached through a scenario. It's more about going back and unwinding what are your values. And we have exercises and worksheets and things in the book and on our website and so forth to really help people identify a little bit closer what their values are and then what's really getting in their way of making those confident decisions. So those 5 C's are just kind of the root of how we look at things.
This has just been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much. And by the way, your hair looks great. It really is fine.
Well, I appreciate that. And if nothing else, but I tell you, it was really fun talking to you, and I'm glad we had the opportunity. Hope we can do it again.
I would love that. Now, where can people learn more about you? We didn't even talk about your 8 books, but where can they find all of this Alyssa Dver information?
Well, the easiest place, it's a long thing to type, but it's easy to say, is the AmericanConfidenceInstitute.com. There's a page about me. You can send us a message. It always gets to me. More information about that. If anyone wants to know more about employee resource groups, you can go to ergleadershipalliance.com. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn and love to hear from people in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been such an enlightening conversation. It helped me. I got myself a little coaching session right in there, which was lovely. So everyone, please, please, please look up Alyssa Dver. We all have a measure of confidence that we can build on. We need it. It's something that is a skill that you can actually work on. And I mean, it makes life so much better and it hooks you into what's important to you. So check out everything about Alyssa. And if you do need another little confidence boost or some more brilliance and resilience in your day, head on over to brilliantlyresilient.net. You can sign up for our Brilliance Bit, of which Alyssa will be a part when this episode airs. And we will see you next time on the next episode of the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Now, before you go, remember this. Resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. If today's episode helped you reset, rise, or see your brilliance a little more clearly, I invite you to take the next step with me. Explore the Brilliantly Resilient resources, including the podcast, books, and the new Brilliantly Resilient mini course series, all designed to meet you exactly where you are. You can learn more and get started at brilliantlyresilient.net. Until next time, stay steady, stay curious, and keep moving forward, one resilient step at a time.